Welcome to Keep Trucking Personal, where we invite you to explore the heart and soul of our company, Kivi Bros Trucking. Through engaging storytelling, insightful market updates, and vibrant energy, our podcast reflects our culture, values, and achievements. Whether you're a team member or industry enthusiast, join us to build connections, foster growth, and inspire excellence. Discover why we're more than just a company. We're a community, a catalyst for positive change, and a home for those aspiring to be part of something extraordinary. The pre-trip is complete and engines ready. We're set to hit the road on the Keep Trucking Personal podcast. Let's go.
Welcome to Keep Trucking Personal. My name is Tyler Kivi and I'm your host. If you're listening to this episode, I just want to say thank you. You're part of this industry and you're part of the change agent that is making this industry better. And I'm super excited that you're here. I want to take this podcast episode and talk about why I'm so passionate about the trucking industry and how the trucking industry has molded me. Because a lot of the episodes we talk about are ways to improve or become like the old version of trucking, and we're trying to mold the industry slightly. I want to talk about how the industry has molded me. And for me, it started right out the gate. From when I was 4 years old, my first memory of trucking started when I was 4 years old. I was in a truck stop. I don't know the full context. My mom and dad tell me that I was throwing a tantrum over not getting something from the truck stop, and I decided to lay down in the middle of the truck stop right in front of the fuel island and cry. I think maybe just that emotional stress is why I remember it. Like I said, I don't remember every little thing around it, but I do remember laying there and my mom and dad like, get up, what are you doing? And I took full advantage of that. But it started that young for me, the very first memory. And I honestly think that is one of my very first things that I do remember, as unique as that is. But it molded me right out the gate. I was born into it, and I would say that it's probably very similar to, growing up on a farm. You're there, you're in it, and you don't know any different. I didn't know any different. Traveling the country, traveling Minnesota, traveling early mornings, 2 a.m., that was normal. That's what it was, and there was no different. You didn't know any other industry. I didn't know that there was options to go other ways. I was in trucking, and that's what I knew. And I moved up to my next age that I remember was 8 years old. And I remember at that point, I was already starting to get the opportunity in the summer to go to our shop and start to go spend time with my dad and, brother Derek at that time in the office, hang around. I know I didn't contribute a whole lot, didn't have a lot of value, but I was there and I was like a sponge sucking up what goes on, spending time. My grandpa would come in and tell stories and relish on the old things that he was proud about and how he had built the company and brought his family into it. And I think that my upbringing was probably very similar to my uncles and my dad. Don't know any different. You're right in the grind and you're right in it. And so for me, it kept building that knowledge and that foundation, that big trucks, moving equipment, hauling things on a flatbed was the normal. That's what we do. And then part of my upbringing was my mom. She was very firm on the fact that you will work. She worked as a construction worker in a male-dominated industry, and she dominated it. She did a very good job, and she fought that hard fight every single day and demonstrated that you have to work hard. Whether it's with your hands or with your head, you're going to do it and you're going to do it well. And so at 12 years old, that was her number. Why she came up with that number, maybe, I've never really unpacked why 12 was her number, but she talked about it all the time. When you're 12, you're going to work. When you're 12, you're going to work. I did. Started going into our shop again, and trying to contribute more. Still was a little young and a little, not capable of lifting heavy things and doing things in our shop. But that was the easiest thing that I could get around. But what I'd also do is spend time with family out in the truck. So if I wasn't a value add in the shop, if there wasn't something, very simplistic that I could do, I would spend time in the truck. And that wasn't with just my core family at Kivi. My mom's side, my Uncle Randy, my Uncle Kevin, my grandpa, my Uncle Ronnie, everyone was involved in this trucking industry. So that's on my mom's side. So family reunions, doing anything in the summer, get-togethers, we talked about trucking, and we talked about trucking a lot. We spent time inside of trucks that weren't even running. My uncles would bring their semis to, Christmas, we would go sit in it. We would spend time in the bunk. We would just get in there and play around equipment. There was always some sort of equipment around. We would get in it, sometimes break things, but that was what we did. We were in it. We were always immersed in some sort of transportation industry sector. And we were always in it, talking about it, eating, sleeping, breathing. And, I think we talk a lot about the trucking industry, how it brings things. Without it, you wouldn't have gas, food, building materials, any of those things. But for me, it was such a normal that I didn't have the opportunity to know any different. And I'm so grateful for that. I was completely head first and I was just loving it. And I continued to spend my time learning, growing, and becoming more fascinated with industry. And so continuing to move forward on helping this industry and what it's done for me. When I was 16, I got my driver's license, and then I was required to work full time. After school, I was washing trucks, and that was something that taught me how to drive the truck. I had the opportunity to pull the truck in, back it out, pull it through, wedge the truck into a corner. In the winter, we used to fill our shop like packing sardines in a can. We would put as many trucks as possible in there, and that was to ensure that come Monday morning, every driver had a truck that would start. As we know, winters in Minnesota are very brutal, and that played in. So I got that opportunity to get within inches and inches and inches and learn how to drive and learn what these drivers go through to become knowledgeable, to help build my foundation to prepare me for the next step, which was working in the shop all the way through. And then I got to do what we had, a specialty niche service where we pulled a conveyor and unloaded our end dumps. So I got to learn how to be responsible out on the road. Wasn't driving a semi. I was driving a 1-ton pickup pulling a conveyor. And then I would go wait at these remote areas. They were typically very remote, sometimes no cell phone service. And I would wait until our trucks would show up, be prepared for them. When they'd get there, I'd back them up onto these ramps, or I'd back them up to the hopper. They would unload their salt onto the conveyor, and then I would stack it, in these sheds for the state. Did that for a whole winter. Loved it because, like I said, I got that opportunity to be free. It was my first taste of spending the time in a hotel alone, right? Making decisions for myself, filling out receipts and tallying what my expenses were, starting to have some responsibilities that I couldn't just go out and do it and fulfill. I got a held to a requirement just as anyone else. I got that 1 meal a day. I had to make sure where am I going to do this, budget it, where am I going to get fuel, how to treat my fuel when it's 20 below, how do I make sure that my diesel pickup's going to continue running, and do it all on my own. Of course, I had my dad, who I talked to every night throughout the whole day, because he was kind of the coordinator of it. So he would coordinate everything, and he taught me all that, how to communicate on the phone, how to schedule, how to be available for a truck driver, because there were times where drivers would start super early and they'd come unload before daylight, so then they could get back to the salt dock and reload. So I had learned early hours, communicating, being responsible, kind of a slight bookkeeping, right? Taking receipts, keeping bill of ladings from every driver, turning them in, sometimes even doing salt samples for the state. It was just a bunch of learning, but it helped give me that foundation for when I was ready to turn 18. And when I turned 18, then it was, dive in, get in there and learn. And Derek was my catalyst for becoming a CDLA holder. He said, we need you, in a family, just like a farm, we need you on board. We need you out there helping pick up freight and being prepared to do whatever we need to do. And not having your CDL was not an option. So right away, went down there, did the written, knocked that out, got my, just did the whole process, had my permit, drove with Derek. He was the typical hardworking leader. I shouldn't even say typical. I don't know that many people would do what he did. He would work during the day and then he would drive at night, and his driving at night was the time to teach me. So then I would ride with him every night. He would let me drive, had my fair share of, I couldn't get it in gear, sitting in the middle of the road. He would, coach me through and how to handle it and walked me through that step, got my license. So he taught me how to be safe, how to drive a truck, how to navigate highways. I had ridden with my uncles and done logging and all that. But when you're younger, you really are there for the experience. You just fascinated with what you're doing, but you're not navigating and moving that truck, pulling into a scale for your first time, understanding that it's intimidating. And it's given me a lot of knowledge and foundation to be able to speak on behalf of all of this, because I was able to learn. I'm not, everything I'm talking through and talking about comes from the heart, and it comes from my passion, because I was fortunate and I was able to learn all about it. But so getting my license at 18, then working the local Minnesota job where, because I couldn't leave the state, obviously, and I was learning that you had to be up 2 a.m. every day. That was how it was worked. That was how it was preloaded. You started at 2 a.m. every day and you made your deliveries, which are typically in southern Minnesota, for 7 a.m. And then you'd come all the way back. You'd work locally, preload for the next day. So once again, very young, 18, 19, had to learn responsibility. You can't go hang out with your friends. You can't go do all this stuff without having a plan. And that plan was to make sure you were up because people were waiting on you. Construction sites relied on you. And if you called and gave them your ETA or your appointment or set it up for unloading, whether they had to have a big excavator, crane, whatever, sometimes we self-unloaded with boom trucks. We had all kinds of options, but it taught me the responsibility. And I remember many times, though, those mornings were hard. My Uncle Robbie, he would start my truck if I wasn't there. And there was times where you'd show up and the truck would still be idling, nobody else there. Lessons learned. I mean, the people will leave if you're not there and if you don't hold yourself accountable. So I've learned through trial that, people will leave, people will move on. You have to do what you say you're going to do and earn trust. And for me, as a young 18, 19-year-old, there, I'd sleep in. I probably was a status like, hey, he's young, he's that, he doesn't know what he's doing. And so that for me, that was a hard uphill battle because I was always the youngest one in the industry at how I felt. Being 18, delivering to construction sites where it felt like in their, they're well seasoned in life and they know what they're doing. They're 40, they're 50. They're, like I said, they're veterans in this game. And I'm showing up always feeling like the young one. So it had taught me a lot of that resilience, and it doesn't matter how old you are, you can be confident in what you do. And it doesn't matter. And I had to prove myself. That's how I felt over and over and over. But it led me up to turning 21. And 21 was a pivotal time for me because I was eager to do some real trucking. I wanted to see the country, wanted to know what it was about. Super curious. It was like my pinnacle, getting my wings pinned on. That's what it felt like when I turned 21. That next day I was gone. It was like there's no reason to not take the opportunity and drive. And so I did. I was able to explore the West Coast, from California over to Washington, up to Maine, to Florida, and in between, and even trips up into Canada and all the way to Alaska, which is still one of my favorite trips of all time. And I don't know that I'll ever surpass that, just because of the situation, what we hauled, and the weather and the conditions, and just how remote it was and how ill prepared. I learned that there was so much, and you can be overconfident in some of these scenarios, and I was, and we were, because we had teamed. Me and another driver teamed up there, and we had a lot to learn. And now looking back, I try to do as much as I can to help prepare anyone going in a situation like that, because it's so unique and you need to know what you're doing, or pair you up with a mentor that can help coach through it. So the 21 all the way up into 23 of exploring, going everywhere I can, doing anything, filling any gap, was just, I think trucking across country is one of the most amazing jobs. You get to explore the country, you get to be free and solo, do things that, think about it. If you're not a trucker and you're listening to this, when you go on vacation or you get to go camping, some people like it, some people don't, but if you get to go camping, it's fun. You feel literally like you're part of the wild. And to me, that's what trucking felt like. I would get out there and just go. And I always wanted to set a good example. And it wasn't because of nepotism or like I was favored. I wanted to work hard and earn every opportunity that I had. So putting in a 600 plus mile day was what I expected to do. That's not given to you. Driving is not just something that just because you have your license and you sit in the seat, you're going to make money and be good at it. No, you have to work hard and be diligent. I wanted to perform at the top. I've always wanted to do the best I can. And that was, whether it was securement, communicating with customers. I had truly felt like an ambassador out there, where I was a salesman for the company. And you really are. Every truck driver is a salesman for whoever they work for. You set the standard. You're the face-to-face to those shippers or receivers. And that was what I really enjoyed, getting to go out there and set a level of professionalism that I thought I would like when I was back in the office. The things that my dad and uncles talk about, the things that they displayed every day, and it came easy for them. And that's partly how we were able to grow, was their discipline and being a professional, being on time, saying what you're going to say, what you say you're going to do it. And, easy to say, hard to do. but they set the tone for that. And that was what I was after. That's what I was chasing. That was like, perform hard every day, no matter the situation, and you'll persevere. And I tried that. I tried my hardest. I had run into weather where I couldn't drive, all the same things that we deal with still. Like it's very cyclical. It happens every year. And we go through the same winter. We go through the terrible ice. We go through heavy rain seasons, hot summer days, and you get to go through all that. And I did. And I'm fortunate for it because it's helped mold who I am today. I can speak knowledgeably and I can speak intentful on why I think this is the best way and why I feel prepared to lead a company, because I am confident in what we do and how we do it. And I was trained from 4 years up. But going back to the driving, so 23, I'm 21 to 23, I'm going everywhere, traveling anything I can do. And this was still in the flatbed sector, step deck, Conestoga, but I was going wherever we needed. And then 23 had come around, and I had kind of, at that time, insurance finally had caught up, and they said, hey, you're too young. You're too young to be out traveling the country. Why are you prepared to do that? And I remember this, I had to actually do a phone interview with our insurance agent to tell him why I felt prepared to travel the country. And at that time, I was still a certified DOT inspector. So I had went and done a class for the state of Minnesota to be able to DOT all of our trucks and trailers, and was certified for it. So I had to tell him what made me prepared. And I thought at that point it was like, why am I doing this? My Uncle Mark was like, you have to have this interview and put together why you think you're able to do this. And for me, I was like, as I've said now, like I'm been in this industry. I was born in this industry. It's all I've done. I've worked in our shop. I've washed the trucks. I've drove the trucks. I've inspected the trucks. I'm trying to do the best job I can on the road to set the example for what, not only to make my dad proud, but to set a good example and be the professional truck driver that I believe everyone can do. And so I went through that whole interview. The consensus was, okay, you can drive, try to be more limited to certain days in this, but at that point, Derek had decided, we need you in the office now. We need you to take the next step and start to learn dispatch. And for me, I'll tell you what the most exhilarating thing that I was excited for at that time was to have people call me and ask questions. And I know that sounds funny or kind of why, but I wanted to be as important as Derek was. Derek had all kinds of people calling him all the time, whether it was customers or drivers, anyone in between, whether it was a safety related, operational, how to do this, how could you execute? And he was just so good at it. He had so much knowledge, and I was envious of it. I wanted to have people look up to me like they did to him. And so that's what I was excited for. Office came, I was like, okay, I'm going to need a cell phone. And it was, at that point, it was probably not necessary quite yet, but I was so excited to get that and have somebody call me because they needed me. On the other end, when I was out driving and doing all that, I was always the one, calling in or just reporting statuses, ETAs. This is when I'll be there. This is, so on and so forth. But to have somebody call me and ask questions and for me to leverage my knowledge. And then once again, I was humbled real fast. Didn't know what I didn't know when it came to the office, but I had two of the best teachers. I sat in between Derek and on the other side was my dad. So I had two of the best teachers in the industry on how to book freight and how to procure it, how to put it on the truck, how to do LTLs. And so I got, the firsthand knowledge sitting on both sides of me on how to do this and how to go through it. And even back then it was kind of funny because fax machines were used very frequently. It wasn't like now where everything's 100% email. Even getting my own email felt like a rock star, little things just to have that responsibility. And it felt good to carry the name and build up a legacy. And that's what we were wanting to do. And that's what Derek was extremely passionate about. He's always been no fear, like we can do it. Doesn't matter what it is. And that rubbed off on me, but it took a long time because he's confident, and confidence in trucking is what we all admire to have. Like it's probably like any industry, when you've never done it and you join it, there's so many acronyms and there's so many ways to talk about it and there's so many ways to relate, but it can take a long time to learn. So I was right in the grind, working and learning. And one of the things that helped shape and mold my life was working through all of that connections is how I met my wife, through logistics. So not only was I building my knowledge depth of how trucking worked from the shop to the office and all in between, then I was able to meet my wife, and didn't know it at the time, but we had spent 8 months communicating back and forth via email, phone call, and she wasn't even living in the state. But it afforded me all of this knowledge, and then kept giving. This industry kept giving to me, and it gave me my wife. And it's amazing. Like I still, when I look back on, how blessed I've been to go through that, and then to meet my wife, and then to, and I thought that everyone in this industry was going to be as passionate as I was. And she, we laugh about it now, but she was relatively new in the industry, and she was not as passionate as I was. I used to send her pictures of trucks and trips that I'd went on, and she did not see it the same way that I had saw it. And we laugh because I was just too naive. I was so immersed in trucking that it was like the only thing I knew, it was the only language that I knew. And when somebody else was in it, I was like, they have to understand what I'm talking about, and they must want to know more. Yeah, but I met my wife, and then my wife and I she moved to Minnesota, and then we got married. And in that marriage, I've had so many people in the trucking industry, even apart. My friends are in the trucking industry. So when I think of my wedding, it was like my wife and all my cousins and friends and uncles and aunts, all of them are surrounded, and it's a big trucking industry. So even in the best days of my life, there was still a high presence of the transportation industry. It's helped mold everything that I do. And I've been a part of people's weddings that are dear friends to me, and they're in the trucking industry. Some of my best friends are in the trucking industry. The smartest people that I've met that I think could solve so many of the world's problems work in the trucking industry. My father growing, all of us work in the trucking industry. So there's so much that it's given me, and it keeps giving. And that's why I'm so passionate about everything that we talk about. That's why I feel that I can speak sensibly and understand what the problems are, and what motivates me to keep this podcast going is there's so much that it's given me. I want to give back, and it continues to keep giving. I mean, every day I learn something new. The industry continues to evolve, whether it's technology or we're trying to combat with this podcast. How do we keep things personal? How do we stay face to face? How do we stay relevant with each other and not get so distant that we forget that this industry has a lot to give, and you can grow in any position as a truck driver. Like I said, there's so much that you can accomplish from earning a good wage. And I would like to speak quick on that too. When I was 18, I was very fortunate to work hard. I got paid per load, same way as our drivers do now. Every single thing I did was the same. There was no specials given my way, but I was able to earn a good living right at the age of 18. It just molded the way that I think about things. It helped me understand that you have to work hard, put in the time and effort for every dollar you earn, but you can keep energy and stay passionate about it through all the little things. And those are the things we talk about all the time. Doing what you say you're going to do, trying to set the bar as high as you can, over deliver, check your equipment. All these things are the same. They really haven't evolved. A lot of the back office stuff has evolved with trucking. Trucks have become more aerodynamic. There's more technology in the cab, and all of those things still and continue to enhance your process, but they're not different from how the trucking industry when it started 100 years ago. Like there's so much that's similar, and that's why it's so exciting, because we're still playing this old school game of trucking, trying to teach new ways, trying to bring professionalism back to the top, and making sure that every experience that we deliver, whether it's with a car that's driving beside us or that customer you're talking to face to face, we deliver an experience that sets the image of what this trucking industry is. It's hardworking individuals that earn every dollar that they put in their pocket. Every single thing they've done has been hard earned, and it continues to be that way. And that's why the flatbed industry and the heavy haul industry is so appealing to us, because there's so much work that goes into it. And this isn't to discount any van or any driver like that, because we have vans too. It's just the fact that that's what we grew up on, putting things together, sweat, tarping, chains, straps, all of it. And it keeps me motivated. And I just was talking with Caitlin, and I was thinking through like every single thing that I know has come from this industry. Every single thing that I've been, and every single person that I've met has been tied to this industry or been a byproduct of something from this industry. And it continues to just evolve and give and give and give. And from learning 4 years old, throwing a tantrum in there that you can't have everything you want in a truck stop, to being in a truck stop by myself when I was, or when I was pulling a conveyor at a hotel, to then being in a truck and traversing the country and seeing the Northwest, the Southeast, and all in between, earning a good living while working hard for it, being with my family. And everywhere we went, we got to talk about trucking, to meeting my wife, to the industry, bringing my own kids into it now and helping teach them what it does and how commerce is so important to everything we eat, drink, sleep. Every single thing we do has some sort of touch or has been touched by the trucking industry. So super excited on why we're here. Super excited to teach my kids and everyone that listens, whether you're in the trucking industry, you've been a trucker, you're just curious to catch up on what this industry has. And I want to be the catalyst. I want to be involved and I want to help the industry improve. I want to help people improve. I'm very passionate about all of that. And I'm just excited to see where the future brings us. So if you want to learn more, if you have any questions about how I got in the industry, how it's given me so much, and how I'm so blessed to have received all of it, please reach out to me. Or if you have any questions, or if you'd like me to dive into any specifics on my timeline and how I grew up in the industry, I'd be happy to unpack any of that. But until next time, stay safe and happy trucking.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Keep Trucking Personal. We appreciate you taking the time to explore the heart and soul of Kivi Brothers Trucking with us. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a review to let us know your thoughts. Tune in next time as we continue our journey together, diving deeper into what makes us a community, a catalyst for positive change, and a home for those who aspire to be part of something truly extraordinary. Until then, keep trucking, and we'll catch you on the next episode.